Hello, kind-hearted people of Earth and beyond. Welcome to the Kindness Rising podcast, the podcast that aims to inspire people to lead lives that flourish, grounded in kindness. My name is Brandon Blanks. I'm a writer and a stand-up comedian. I'm also the producer and co-host of this show. As always, the Kindness Rising podcast is brought to you by Kindness Rising. Kindness Rising is a community organization committed to inspiring, equipping, and resourcing people to lead lives that flourish, grounded in kindness, and aimed at making the world a better place. For more information, please visit our website at kindnessrising.community. There you can find out about our upcoming events, how to get involved. You can sign up for our newsletter, find out more information about this podcast, or even donate. Kindness Rising is supported solely by the generous contribution of our lovely donors. So if you would like to help support us, please go to kindnessrising.community/donate. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy this episode of the Kindness Rising podcast.
Welcome to the Kindness Rising podcast. This is Keith Page. I am so glad you're here to take a listen and join me and some friends. It's going to be a great one. I'm here with Brandon Blanks.
How you guys doing?
And Brandon and I are here together with Mykah Wilson.
Hello.
Mykah, you and I have some mutual friends that brought us together. And during this podcast, it's my hope for us to take some of the conversations and things you and I have talked about and things that you're working on project-wise and share them with others. And if I have my way, by the time we're done, others who are listening to this podcast and are sharing it are coming out to support you and what you're up to, because I believe in you. And I want others to believe in you and get behind you and make it happen.
Awesome.
Does that sound good?
Looking forward to it.
Okay. Brandon, ready to rock and roll?
We are good to go.
Brandon, have I told you today I'm thankful for you?
You have not, but that's nice to know. I got the sense that you were, but it's nice to hear it out loud.
Yeah. Brandon is
thankful for you too, my friend.
Yeah, you're the producer of this show, and you let me come along and help host, and it's fun that you make us sound and be so professional.
Hey, thanks. Also, shout out to MXL microphones.
There you go.
On Amazon.
There you go.
Can't see them, but they look cool.
That's right.
They do look cool. Also, everyone here has a great podcast voice.
Right.
Thanks,
I'll just say it.
Appreciate that.
Mykah, hi.
Hi.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Tell us a little bit about Mykah. Your maybe growing up years, some of the things you were interested in, get us up through high school, into college, wherever you want to go.
Let's do it.
And then Brandon and I will just get curious and we'll just go along for the ride.
Cool. My name is Mykah. I am 25. I grew up in Texas in a very small town outside of Fort Worth called Aledo. It's definitely one of those towns where you are into sports or you are not. So sports were the thing. If you've ever seen Friday Night Lights, that is essentially where I grew up.
Got it.
So I grew up, I have 5 siblings. I'm the youngest of 6. We all were into all things Texas. So playing outside, playing lots of sports, all those kinds of things. We grew up really close and connected to each other. And eventually, through middle school, high school, started gaining interest in other things, had a lot of friends, wanted to kind of expand, and found myself playing volleyball, where I just latched onto the sport. I loved it. Played pretty much every second of every day after that. And eventually started playing beach volleyball, which is not a thing in small town Texas. It looks more like you play volleyball in a sandbox outside of a bar and call it beach volleyball.
I've done that. Like on a college campus, they have a lot of sand pits and
totally
stuff. Yeah.
That's the vibe. So I did that, and I was like, well, maybe one day I can move to California. Maybe one day I'll get good enough to where I can play with the real beach volleyball players. So I spent so much of my time just being totally enveloped in that journey, and then eventually came out here for college, made it all happen, played at Long Beach State, and cut my career short due to injury, but decided I liked it out here. So I stayed out here, and then started the rest of my life. Came out to California, and then came out. So
a double coming out. Okay.
A double coming out.
We want to get into that. Before though, let me ask a couple of quick follow-up questions about volleyball. And when you came out, did you get recruited by Long Beach State?
I did, yeah.
And was that indoor or sand?
It was both, actually.
Okay.
I was in the mood where I wanted to play both, which you can only really do here in Hawaii. So
right.
I got all the way down to it, but essentially knew I was going to come here no matter what, and ended up coming out here.
And ended up playing both at Long Beach?
Both at Long Beach.
Which one were you more successful at?
Oh, gosh, that's
Is that hard one?
Hard question. I would say probably indoor, but I definitely had more fun on the beach. It's it's way more chill environment. You're outside. Yeah. There's only two of you. You can't be coached in games, so it's just like really you and your partner.
Got it.
I loved it.
No squeaky shoes.
No squeaky shoes.
Yeah, gyms are really bad, like loud, sharp noises. I'm really sensitive to sounds. Gym sounds anyway.
It's rough. No hardwood floor. Like you get rid of all of that, and you're just outside. Yeah. You're by a beach. What more could you want?
Right. So can you not dive? No sport. I'm one of the people, if I was in Texas, I wouldn't have been into sports. So can you not dive in indoor volleyball, obviously?
You can. It's not super comfortable.
Right.
But you definitely, it's part of it.
If you want to win.
Yeah, if you want to win, you do it, but you don't love it.
Got it. If you have what it takes,
right.
You can do it.
And then my other question is Texas, I always think of Bible Belt or religious state of the country kind of thing. Was that a part of your growing up?
For sure. I would say that, my mom was very evangelical, probably closely identifies with like a Southern Baptist situation. And then my dad wasn't religious, which is an interesting dynamic in Texas, right? Yeah. So I grew up around both perspectives of we've got quite a traditional and legalistic religion on one side, and then we've got more of an aloof hippie guy on the other. So I didn't claim faith as my own until much later in life, but I could walk it, talk it. I went to church every Sunday. It was culturally a part of who I was, but I wouldn't say that I was a Christian in that way. It just was a product of Texas.
Totally. And so coming out, did you come out before this Christian experience or after?
After. So I think I've heard this perspective a lot from other LGBTQ identifying people, but fairly early, you get a clue of there's something, right? Maybe you don't have the words of what that something is, but you know that there's a thing. And you know that eventually you might have to deal with that thing or reconcile it or talk about it. What is it? Why do I want to be closer to my girlfriends than my guy friends? Like all those things that you don't have language for when you're a kid. I definitely knew that it was there, and I knew enough of my social, political, all things setting to know that it was also wrong. So those two things came into play. I found it easier than accepting myself to allow a closeted version of myself to be accepted in community, which is how I sort of stepped into the church at all. I came to all of these realizations of, if I do this, to follow the kind of Christian language for it, if I follow these temptations, if I, lead my life into sin, things like this, then I will lose community. I will lose family. I will suffer a lot of loss for what? Love? Maybe I can live without it, and maybe I can go this other way and have an abundance of community, have an abundance of family, friends, all of the things, but maybe not dive super into romance. And maybe that's a successful life for me. Maybe that's the life I'm supposed to live.
So is that what you were kind of trying on?
Totally.
Okay. I
think in tandem, as I was coming to more realizations of, what I feel inside, I'm gay. I'm just gay. That is what it is. Mm-hmm. As I was coming to those realizations, I was also coming to the oh no part of it, where it was okay, now I know it, I see it, I'm going to tuck it away and put it somewhere else. And I'm going to hide it so that I can continue down this other path, not disappoint anyone, not hurt anyone, be a good kid, be a good sister, do all the good things. And eventually that led me to the church. So there was a lot of dissonance there of the more I kind of, again, to use the language, denied myself, the more I felt and got involved with the institution that is the church. here in America.
Yep. Did you think you would be letting down, when you say letting down people, initially family?
Yes.
Got it.
Super.
Right.
And in the South, I don't know if we call Texas the South. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
But in the South, you kind of get the feeling that you're disappointing a lot of people. Even Susie's cousin that's 4 people removed from you, you're like, well, I don't want them to be upset.
Interesting.
And I'm like, well, I don't owe that person anything, is eventually the realization I came to. But in the moment, it's like, well, what am I going to do? What are they going to say? What am I going to have any friends on social media? Are people going to say bad things about me? Am I going to be looked at like negatively or sin or all of the words that, you're terrified of, you justify in your brain? It's just easier if I don't. It's just easier if I just do this instead.
Got it.
Which is what got me there.
Yeah. And did, you said this is when you came out from Texas. Mm-hmm. Do you think it was part of subconscious or conscious to wait until you were leaving Texas to even come to more grips with being in California and then recognizing it?
Certainly.
I
think I was eager going into college of, you come from a huge family with a lot of siblings, parents, both present. I was eager to be alone and kind of figure out what was going on. What did I really believe in? What did I believe about myself? What did I believe about the world? Did I think that things were objectively good or bad? Like just stuff like that, where I was ready to move to a foreign environment with people that did not walk like me, talk like me, look like me, sit in class and just absorb different cultures. I went from being in a community with only white people to then going to college at Long Beach State and being the only white person in most of my classes. So it was a complete shift where I was faced with, I'm going to learn something. Mm-hmm. And it might be about me. It might be about other people, but I need to learn. And I kind of knew that. And I think that's why, I decided to come out here. Of course, it was volleyball related. Of course, it was career, scholarship, all of those things. But it was also this internal juggle of, maybe I will find something there. Maybe I will find more of me there. Acceptance, healing, what have you. Maybe that will be the place.
Now, did you feel any guilt outside of like the social repercussions of because you're gay, so it's not like you don't think of it as, you were explaining before we recorded, it's like when someone doesn't have any gay friends and they meet you, they associate, it's like you knew you were gay, you knew it's not as bad as everyone pursues. So was it more the social ramifications, or did you actually think being gay was like wrong? Or was that your mental state, I guess what I'm asking? I
think probably a little bit of both. I think there was the fear of losing social comfort. So losing dynamics with family, friends, or other where I was comfortable. I didn't want to be uncomfortable. I didn't want to be put in a position where anyone could look at me and not love me or accept me. That felt like too much pain to even tap into. I think beyond that, again, this is before I went to college in 2015. So that is the year that marriage equality passed. So marriage was still a question mark. I was looking at it like, in every way, this is hard. This just will get harder. So trying to be logical, I guess, about a thing that's not very logical. It's your heart. Right. But I tried to be logical about it and say like, I can try, there's all sorts of Christian beliefs, so you can heal it. You can, things like that. I tried it all.
It's no different than any other like desire or whatever. It's kind of the attitude. It's like all sins Jesus can take away. So you're not any particularly harder case for
correct
the lawyer of Jesus' lawyer or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. And I explored all of it. Like I went down every rabbit hole you could go down of, does this really go away? And I think, in that there were a lot of fears. I think it was, am I going to be alone forever? Will it even be legal for me to be married? Will I have people that accept me? Will my parents be disappointed? Will my family be disappointed? Kind of all of these things where I just felt like I was up against a wall. And then the more I looked at the wall, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until finally I was, just crumbling. Of like, I don't even know who I am if I don't just accept myself. Like I'm so worried about all these people that have no relevance, because really what I am telling me is like, I am not okay. I cannot be who I am, who I want to be. And that's my own imposition on myself, which I think is then where I started having more realizations of, this shouldn't be how we live. there's got to be a better way, and kind of explored from there.
Was it hard to come out, or were the fears as real as you imagined them to be?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, sadly, I think is a common story. I think if you have the fear, you already know it's there to some degree. Unless you're living in an anomaly of you know people are accepting. The first people I ever came out to and told were people I knew wouldn't care. Because I was like, I just need an easy win before I do the hard stuff. Just need a good 5-6 people to get the confidence boost, and then I'll do the hard stuff. And so I think you kind of have an idea with things like that going into it of how you'll be received. And there were a few surprises. I got some people that I was like, this is going to suck. And then it was great. And they're, to this day, so accepting, so loving of me and my girlfriend. Like, things like that surprise you and are great. But then there's also the alternative of, I thought this was going to hurt, and it did, in fact, hurt.
Yeah.
Oh. And so I'm trying to figure out the timeline between as you're thinking about, going through all this internal right, wrestling, and then you're also getting more and more involved in local church at the same time initially.
Yeah, so I initially came out here to California again to play volleyball. That career ended short due to injury, so my first sort of identity crisis was, who am I without this thing that I've done for 12 years?
Yeah.
And entering that is when I kind of opened myself up to the door that was the local church of, I'm going to lose this team-like structure, but I can gain it over here on Sundays. And so I just smooth transitioned out of sport and into church. And it was incredible. Like every fear about losing my community, I then received times 10, stepping into the church. And then I had God, and I had Jesus, and I had belief, and I had acceptance, and I had all the things that I was scared if I lost this sport, this identity piece, that I would be without. But I learned very quickly that I wasn't. And that was good. So I think that's kind of where it started. But at that time, I'm 19 years old. I'm tapping into the local church. That's also the peak of me realizing, not only am I gay and have I known it, but I'm going to have to deal with this. Right. I met a girl and I was like, oh no, this must be dealt with. And I was on staff at the church.
Okay, so you've gone from church involvement to church leadership.
Church leadership, just full send.
Wow, praise the Lord.
Full send, yeah. There it is. Just went full send. I was like, yeah, I'm good at this.
Right.
I'll just do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get paid.
Right. Yeah.
And I went from not super knowing if I believed in anything to knowing I believed in God to going to church, to working at the church, all in a span of 3 months.
Whoa.
It was a very quick, this can change my life if I let it, and I think I'm going to let it. And again, I was holding that at the same time of, oh no.
What kind of role at a church?
I worked in outreach. Okay. So a lot of community development, community-oriented things, mission trips.
Serving local, global, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Okay. And did you know, even getting involved, that if you were to come out, that they considered this, let's quote, air quotes, lifestyle as sin? Yeah. And that you knew to suppress, not talk about that, and keep the struggle inside.
I remember when I first got the job offer, it has, the, what do they call it? The statement of faith. And I remember in it reading, we believe that the biblical definition of marriage is between a man and a woman. I've read it 1,000 times. Yeah. But I remember being so excited about this job, knowing I was going to sign the paper, but still just holding it in my room at night crying. Thinking, I know I'm going to do this. I know that this is the place giving me love, giving me joy. It's healing all the things that I feel like I've lost. But I also know that this is the thing that's going to really hurt. And I knew it as I was doing it. And so much means I wish I would have had the wherewithal to just not. Don't sign the paper, get another job, life's short, you're young, whatever. Yeah. But at the time, it just felt so life or death of what the church was offering was life. And so for me to not sign it was just another opportunity of, what am I going to lose if I don't do this? And so I remember just my hand just shaking as I'm signing the paper, because I just knew I'm going to lose a lot for this one day. And they have the privilege, right? They can't look at me later and say, you didn't know.
Right.
Because that's the fallback, right?
Right.
Like, they knew that I knew. We all knew that everyone knew.
Right.
And I did it anyways. And that was my choice. I did that.
So the statement of faith is like a contract you do that if you violate things, then they can legally... Is that basically the point of it? So that you follow this... It's like a contract, but not for business things. Wow, I didn't know that that's...
And the church doesn't have to follow the same hiring and firing structures. There's certain exemptions there that you, like HR-wise, there are ways around. Whereas if people worked for me, I could not fire them because of their identity. That would be wrong.
Got it, right.
And also illegal.
Right, so churches...
Churches can, yeah, because you're against the belief structure of that organization. So, yeah, I knew as I was doing it. It's interesting now, being 6 years away from those moments, thinking I knew the whole time of what I was doing, and I knew just how strong both of those pulls were. I knew how badly I wanted to be loved and accepted and involved in the church, where all my friends were, where everyone was just having such a good time, seemed so happy, was healing. And then I also knew I want to be married one day. I want to have kids. I want to have a family. If I just hold on to both, if I just white knuckle both of them, I bet I can be the one to do both.
Beat the odds.
Like, watch me. I can do both. And then you learn.
Right.
There's reasons why no one's successful. But I couldn't. But I tried really hard for a lot of years to just hold them both. And now, thankfully, that relationship that was kind of the awakening is over. And I'm in the one now that I'm with the person I'll spend forever with. And that, in and of itself, she also came from the church. And I think we can both talk about these things of, like, how painful it was and how grateful we are now, however many years later, to kind of be on the other side and to think back and hold what is good from those times and also acknowledge what is hard. I think now, like, even just talking about it right now, like, I just feel so grateful for who I'm with today, because I'm like, our relationship would be a fraction of what it is if we didn't have that mutual understanding of each other, which is so interesting.
Because she understands.
She understands.
Yeah.
I don't have to be like, hey dude, once I got crazy and I worked on staff at a church, even though I knew eventually I would have to quit or be fired. Like, I knew that was coming, but I did it anyway.
Did she do the same thing?
She didn't. She was very involved in Young Life.
Got it.
Which...
Parachurch organization. Yeah, great organization.
I went to some Young Lives in middle school.
Of course.
Yeah.
Wildlife, I think they call it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was. I was following girls there, I'm going to be honest.
And pizza.
Yes. And,
always pizza.
And it was the 2000s, so half pipes were like a thing.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of churches had half pipes, which were pretty cool. It's a skateboarding thing for the folks at home who aren't from Southern California. Surf's up, everybody.
That's right.
Tubular. All right.
Okay, so she had ministry background.
Yeah, and I think, looking at it now, looking at those times, like, I probably couldn't be with someone that didn't.
Right.
Because they would just, my whole story is foreign to a non-Christian individual. They're like, why didn't you just not do it? I'm like, well, it didn't feel that simple in the moment. In the moment, it felt like I will lose everything if I lose Jesus. So I couldn't.
I have another question in kind of as you, how long from the time you went on staff until you left staff, and did leaving staff involve more of the people finding out you were out?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, or at least tell us how that process was for, even if you don't want to share the details of it, how was that process for you? And then, so that's part one. And the second part is, how did that also shape your own faith journey? If if you want to talk about that also, those are two kind of interesting things for me.
Yeah, I started on staff at a church in Huntington. I quickly climbed the church ladder from volunteer to intern to staff to leading a department. It happened very fast, and I was there for over a year, maybe two. It wasn't terribly long. And eventually I had the wherewithal of, I need to take a step away. So I did it. I took a step away. I was like, I'm going to find a new job. I'm going to do this for me. And then someone I know, love, and trust from another church across the way called and was like, I'm sorry, I know you just quit, but I need you. And I hopped right back in.
Oh, really?
So I had
enjoying
good intentions.
another church.
Another church.
Got
same
it.
sort of family, same network of churches.
Right.
But I was there for almost 2 years, and then I was like, I think this will be the transition time, and then twist. It wasn't. I hopped right into another church, which was interesting. I think that decision is probably the only one that I'm like, why did I do that? But getting back involved with the church again, just a couple months later, that's when the real struggle started, because I had this conflict with myself of like, I took a step away. I was going to do it. I was going to just launch. And then I don't know if it was fear. Even talking about it now, I have no idea. I don't know if I was scared. I don't know if I thought that being offered another job at another church was the God in the story, like God's way of being like, no, don't do that. Stay close, or stay in this thing, stay here. So I was like, you know what? I'll do it. In that church, I was only there for maybe 6 months. I remember it was 2020, and George Floyd had just happened. And I remember walking in and just being so disappointed with the church in America in general, saying, here's a thing that we should all be talking about, and no one is talking about it. I don't know if we're scared. I don't know what it is, but no one's talking. We're still showing up on Sundays. It's on a freaking screen because of COVID. Like, nothing is normal. Just take a leap and say what's happening. Talk about racism. Take a stand. Literally do anything. I will write it. I know I'm just a kid, but I will write it for you. But you've got to do something. So I was stepping into all these protests. I was doing all these things on my own. And I was just having these realizations of like, the church isn't showing up for me how I need it to, isn't showing up for people I love how I need it to. All my black and brown friends, I'm like, I'm watching you just be disappointed. I'm disappointed in like, how can I say that I work for this thing? And then 2 months later is pride. So I'm already having all these struggles of like, I don't like this environment. I don't feel like they're standing up for the right things. I feel so much within myself of just like turmoil. Like, I need to be on the right side of history with all of it. But all the while, like, I'm not being kind to myself. Like, I'm not showing up for myself at all. And then pride comes, and I remember writing a letter to my boss and just saying, I love you. Here's the truth. It's pride. This year has sucked. I want to be proud of who I am, because at least like I'm alive, at least I'm here. And I was met with, let's talk in person. And that began then there's more conversations, there's verses read. We go through Romans 1 a lot. We talk about like marriage being between a man and a woman. We talk about, what in my past may have contributed to me being attracted to women. Did I always receive the right kind of love from women? Things like that. Did I have healthy relationships with men? Was I put off by men? Like, things like that all the connections you don't want someone to make with your sexuality were happening. And I
looking for the reasons.
The reason. Like, something's wrong with you. Let's figure out why. And I feel like I was just sitting there just begging for like, do you not see what's happening with the world? Like, our entire nation is shaking and the church is just staying still. Like, we have all these communities, all these people that are being marginalized by the dominant groups, by the church, and we're just sitting here and doing nothing. And I'm one of them.
Right.
I remember sitting in the room being like, do you not get it? Like, I'm one of them. And you're about to, the very thing that I'm telling you is what's like causing all these rifts, like you're about to do to me, and I can feel it. And eventually that conversation turned to, we see you, we hear you. We're not going to invalidate you or your existence, but you get to choose. You can choose your job, or you can choose this lifestyle, to use your word.
Right.
And in the moment, I just wish I would have been like, it's not a choice.
Right.
Like, it's not a choice. I'm not just sitting here being like, I think today I'm going to wear a blue shirt.
Right.
Like, it's not what it is.
Yeah, it's not.
And it was so hard. And so, obviously, I chose the lifestyle because it's not a lifestyle. It's just my life.
Right.
Chose it, walked away. In 2020, I was unemployed in an employment crisis. Again, we're in the middle of COVID. We're in the middle of everything. I got no job. Come out to everyone I know, and I'm like, here's what's happening. And I just sat still for, I don't think I got a job for 8 or 9 months of just sitting in all of it. The good, the joy, the I can take a step forward, enter a new season, and then the pain and the suffering of everything I thought I knew I've lost. And I think in that time period, my faith went through a freaking roller coaster. There were some moments where I was like, well, the only reason I'm still trying anything is because I still believe in a God. But the institution of the church had hurt so bad that I was like, I don't believe in any of that. So then it became another juxtaposition of like, how do you believe in God but not the church? And I'm just going through all these wrestles, living alone in a home while I'm unemployed for 8 months.
Right.
And
the world's on fire.
The world is on fire.
Because it's COVID too.
Then there's an election. Like, all of the things are happening. And I feel like I'm just in a blender in my own home. Like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to try and figure something out today. But I just was put through it and through it and through it and through it to the point where at the end, nothing made any sense at all. And that's when I feel like I just gave up everything and was like, well, if wherever I'm supposed to be, it will happen. But I'm going to stop trying so hard to hold on to everything. I will just try to hold on to me and see what happens. And so I gave up everything. And in that, I think that's where I found like the most authentic version of whatever faith is for me. I think came from acknowledging that what I had wasn't serving me or anyone I loved anymore.
Yeah. How does that strike, as you hear this for the first time, her story, Brandon, how does that strike you?
It's just crazy to, well, because it's not like Jesus personally came up to you and said, like, this is bad. You know, you can't believe in me because of the way you feel. And so it's just such a, you know, people, there's that saying that I heard Christians say, it's like, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. It's like, you pretty much lost all of the religion part except for your ability to, you know, connect with Jesus or God or whatever, you know. So, yeah, do you mind going into a little bit of like where you're at with your faith, or?
I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
I think faith is so interesting. I think there's some days where I'm like, I wish I could go to church. Like, I miss the like community aspect of it, but I don't believe in it. So it's like, why would I go? How would you?
Right.
I'd probably get my feelings hurt. Someone would say something and I'd be like, ugh, that was sideways. Like, I wouldn't fit in if I went. But I think I missed the part of organized faith, I guess, that was very community oriented and was very systematic and structured. And I had a plan. On Sundays I did this. I felt
pretty reliable.
You know?
Yeah, it's very easy. It's an easy track. You don't have to think about it. It's just like this ritual.
You just show up. So I think some days I miss that.
Let me ask, so sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Because I'm curious this, and I'm sure maybe listeners are too. When you say you don't believe in church, because now there are more and more churches that are becoming open and affirming, open and welcoming, LGBTQ. I call them rainbow churches, like in a wonderful way, right? Are you saying not going back to kind of the evangelical church, or churches as structures run by humans that are taking offerings and running programs? What part of that do you believe or don't believe? Because I know some friends that have, you know, I would say cool LGBTQ churches that if I wanted to go to, you know, that's probably where I would go, but I don't buy it. You know, I'm out at this point of the game. But yeah, curious where that is for you when it comes to all churches.
I think it started as a, you know, I don't believe in what the traditional evangelical church is offering. I think that's where it started. I think it became very clear early on of, if I want to keep my dignity and my humanity in my life, I have to leave this thing, this structure.
Yep.
That, however, and then I took some gambles of like, I'll go to a happy, affirming church where everyone is gay.
Okay, so you check that out. Yep.
Maybe even the person speaking is gay.
Right.
I'll go for it.
Yeah.
People of color, like all the dynamics and all the like different identities that I believe in were present in the room.
Things you think you would want. Like if I'm going to church, these are all the things I want.
Check. But it still didn't feel right. Like it still just felt to me like something is contrived here, or even in an affirming space, I still feel like I'm giving up a piece of me. And I don't know if that comes from pain. I don't know if that's like a little signal in my brain being like, there still needs to be some healing here.
Right.
But I feel like even when I step into affirming church spaces, I still feel like now I have to fit the gay Christian box. And I just don't want there to be a box.
Right.
Like it, and that's where then I started losing all of it, of saying maybe the structure is what I don't believe in, because I can get down with the spiritual side of stuff, with praying, with meditating, nature, like all of the, like you're saying, like relationship with whatever it may be, I can totally get behind. I love it. I love like feeling connected to things. I love feeling connected to the earth, to my own journey of like why I have certain dreams, why I take steps toward them. I love that. Once you get into actual organized church and religion, there's something I can't do anymore. And it feels like to be in the room, someone is still sacrificing something, whether that is a fully affirming room, but maybe everyone looks the same and there's still an outsider. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's, we're affirming and we go so far in the other direction of like, now we're a super cool, trendy church. We don't even look like any other church that's ever gone before. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I don't feel like I fit there either. So I always just felt like I was in between all the worlds of like, I don't fit in with the Christians anymore. I don't fit in with the gay Christians, I don't think. And then do I fit in with the gays? Because there's a lot of, again, the LGBTQ population that, like me, has been so hurt and there's different coping mechanisms for that. And so, like, where do I fit amongst my own community? I feel like there were so many wrestles of, like, who even am I? And what do I believe in all of this? And for me, church just hasn't come back as being one of them. Because I still, all the things that once you leave start to feel like, ick. Those things don't really go away. Whether it's money stuff or like whatever it is. Right. Church is a business here. Like that stuff rubs me the wrong way. And even if it's affirming, it'll probably still rub me the wrong way. So it's been hard. Maybe one day I won't feel this way. Mm-hmm. And I know like my family and a lot of people in my life would hope that I don't feel this way forever. And sometimes I do too. Like I don't want to have resentment. But to some degree, I think I do.
Yeah.
It's easy to, and I think it is hard with Christianity especially. It's not like, it's not like a Rotary Club where there isn't some big, you kind of have to be part of the club in order for it to work. You don't want to feel like an outsider at church. It's like almost ironic because especially when you used to feel, does it feel like maybe an old relationship that you used to have? It's like, oh, it's nice to see them, but it just isn't, the magic is kind of gone there with church or.
Yeah, it's like, I just don't feel like I identify with anything here anymore. It was so, like, it served me so well when I really needed it. Like, when I was coming off of volleyball, when I felt like I just needed to grab onto something, it served me so well. But now, if I were to go and try to sit in the room, I'm just so uncomfortable. Like, I don't really know where it comes from, because I can still have the positive outlook that's like, that brought me a lot of good things, a lot of good people. Most of my friends are all post-church, post-Christian, my girlfriend, all the things. I can look at it objectively and say, that brought me good, therefore it was good. But then the other part of me is like, I tried to go to church on Easter, and I took 1 foot into the place and just had a full meltdown. Like, so much panic and anxiety. I was shaking in a bench. Like, I just couldn't grab a hold of it. And I think that's where I started realizing it's bigger for me. I'm not at the point where I feel healthy enough, I guess, to be around it and feel like I come out okay and don't lose a piece of me.
Kind of re-triggers that part, that
totally
fake part of your life that you want to be gone because it was not true, right?
Yeah, and probably the hiding too. Like, I feel like to step in a church now, do I have to hide something? Can I be open? I dress on the more masculine side. Like, can I do that? There's things like that I find in those spaces I just think about so much, to where in my normal everyday life I don't think about anything. I wear what I wear, I do what I want, and I'm happy. But in those spaces, if I re-enter, am I being looked at? Am I doing something wrong? And that's the stuff that I just can't shake, and I really wish I could. But right now, it feels so attached to that structure.
It's good you realize that, and you're kind of moving away from it. It'd be dumb to kind of keep trying and re-triggering yourself. It seems like, especially if it worked at one point, you can just walk away and say, that was a time in my life. And have you found a new spirituality, or it's all just kind of personal these days?
I would say so, yeah. I think I find more of maybe what I was longing for, those like deep conversations, deep connections about things that matter or things that are going on in the world, and feeling close to people. That to me is more in my everyday life now than on Sundays we go and we sit in this chair and we talk about it. It just feels more organic. If like something comes up, we talk about it, and that's the people I surround myself with, and that's how I feel comfortable in my own life to say, like, what's good, what's going really well for you right now, or what's really hard for you right now. To me, that is spirituality, outside of the personal piece of, spending time, I think, with myself. Most of my faith right now is I believe fully and totally in forgiveness at all times, and that's like the thing. Forgive myself, forgive other people, and not in the like, I forgive you,
right,
but in the like, really let go of the dark shit you have and all the resentment and all the pain, and just allow yourself to be free, even if it's from your own self, even if it's what you feel from your own self. I feel like that is my religion, but the exercise of it comes from relationships that I already have and what my life already looks like. Of if I'm struggling with a thing, if I'm feeling re-triggered by, just last week I was like, I feel really sad. Like, what's happening to me? Where is it coming from? And I got on the phone with my therapist, and he's like, well, it's raining. Have any of the things that have been hard for you ever happened in the rain? I'm like, oh my God, you're a genius. But stuff like that I can take to my friends, and they wouldn't blink twice. They wouldn't be like, why is she talking about triggers? Or why is she talking about healing? Like, that's just normal. And that's the spiritual side of me now.
You get all those depthy conversations, without having to have the formality. And it's probably
totally
more genuine too, because I feel like when people get together to have a group, it's like you might like talk about your problems, or you talk about when you don't want to, or you feel like you can't because it's like church or...
Yeah. Just now for me, it's forgiveness and the subsequent freedom. Just like everything gets to be about freedom and not in the like America way. Right. But like you're like actual being, feeling free to be free.
Freedom that is free, not freedom that's not free.
Yeah.
Right. So when you and I met, I think it was, it's somewhere in the 2020 thing, because you were done with ministry, done at the church, and you were on to this sort of adventure, exploring this new project that you were wanting to do. And now we're in it. Yeah, a year and a half, 2 years down the road, and you're in it. Why don't you tell people what that project was, how it came about, and what it's called, and let's dive into that piece now.
Yeah, I, came off of that unemployment season, spent most of 2020 in my own house thinking about what's next. Do I want to tap back into sports? Do I want to coach? I explored every option. But at the end of the day, with the pain that I was wrestling with the people that I loved the most, what felt like the biggest hole to me was community and a safe space to exist. So irregardless of what identity you hold, just being safe. Whether you're a woman, whether you're a person of color, whether you're LGBTQ identifying, I was just thinking, if safety were personified, what would it be? And then I met my now business partner, who is also my best friend. Spoiler alert, her name is Sam. We started having conversations about, mutual goals there. We both are LGBTQ identifying, both young women, both could no longer work at the church for the same reasons. Both felt like we were longing for more. So we met in a group interview for a pastoral position at an LGBTQ affirming church.
What?
Group interview.
What?
And we left the interview and we're like, hey, you're cool. What do you want to see in the world?
Wow.
Turns out it was the same thing. And so we started talking about it. And that dream for us was, what's a space that feels like all people can be who they are, not have to worry about anything. There's creativity, there's love, there's joy, there's friendship. How do we create that? And how do we be, for lack of a better way of saying this, what the church says that they are? Mm-hmm. The church says that they are this harbor, this, safety net, all people, no matter how you identify who you are, what you've done, you can come here and you can be safe. We know that's not true, but we love the idea. So how do we create that? And for us, we both love coffee. And so we thought, perfect. Mm-hmm. What if we made a coffee shop? And what if we put it in Huntington Beach?
What?
Where maybe people aren't exposed to us or our belief systems. And maybe we just sit and hope that for the kids like us that we know have been in spaces where they weren't affirmed, not accepted, lived in cities like that. I lived in Huntington for a long time. How do we know that there are people like us there. So how do we be that safety for them? So we started a dream and we thought it was a coffee shop. We were calling it Luv Collective in our heads. LUV, Luv Collective. Because when we were trying to think of what is love. And for us, that is listening and understanding and validating anyone, which is how LUV came into play. So we thought of the name. We knew it was a coffee shop. We knew we wanted safety, community. We knew we wanted all the big ticket items of no matter who walks in here in this city, we want them to feel like they can just be. And they can be free and it won't cost them anything. They won't be in danger. What do we think? And we were having meetings at this store called Surf Cafe. And we were, drawing on our whiteboard and dreaming and writing our vision down. And I remember we drew a building like, hey, if we ever had a building, this is what we want it to look like. And then we both started laughing and we're like, oh my God, it's Surf Cafe.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's the building we're in. We're drawing the building we're in. Which just was hilarious. So then we, through a friend, we're like, hey, tap the owners on the shoulder and ask them if they ever want to sell, that we're interested. We like the
Surf Cafe.
Yeah, we like Surf Cafe. We like the space. We like where it's located. It's in Huntington. We think we can do what we're trying to do here. Just let them know we're interested. Could be in 3 years, 5 years, whatever. 2 weeks later, they're like, yeah, we're going to put it on the market in 2 weeks. But if you can show that you have the money in 1 week, we'll sell it to you before we drop it on the market.
Wow.
So Sam and I were like, sweet. We are 24 and 22. We have no money.
Right.
But we'll find it. Wow. And we'll buy that store in 7 days. And that's what we did. And
that friend was Tim.
Tim.
And that's who I had met, and that's how you and I met. I think he said, hey, I've got this friend doing this wild, crazy idea. You gotta meet her. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how we met. And shout out to Tim. Thanks for making
incredible
these introductions.
Yeah, Tim basically brokered the sale of the store.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the most integral piece of everything at that point of, getting us into the right conversations to make sure we even had a shot at getting that thing was Tim.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you had to go raise money. Had you ever raised money before?
Yes. Yeah, that's where maybe the church background served me a little bit of, I worked in outreach. So one weekend a year, you go up on the stage and you ask for a year's worth of money to do cool things for the community.
Right. So that's donations.
That's donations.
Right. So you created a nonprofit coffee shop, right?
Thought about it. Originally, that was the idea of, it'll be a nonprofit. We'll kick back money to all the people we're talking about, right? LGBTQ, people of color. We know the statistics there of all the hardships that our communities face. And so we thought, we'll be a nonprofit and we'll battle that. And then wise counsel, be it you and others, said, don't do that. It's going to be really hard in the long run. Make it a for-profit and then create what you want and really have a vision and go after it. And you'll see that you don't have to be a nonprofit. You don't have to be a parachurch organization to be what you're trying to be. Yeah. So just make a business.
Right.
And at that point, we're impressionable. So we're like, okay, we'll just be a business. That's what everyone's saying. So we called everyone we knew. Every person in my phone book got a call. Hey, this is what we're trying to do. You think it's a good idea? Cool. Want to give to us? And, then there were bigger asks of, we knew some people like, hey, we'll talk about returns. We'll talk about big investments. You're investing in this business. We will pay you back. Here's what that'll look like. There were 2 conversations we were having at the same time, depending on who we called. And we knew we needed $263,000 to get the whole thing done. And we knew we had 7 days. And I think the morning of the 7th day, we got the last 30 grand wired to us.
I'm so proud of you. Man, you guys should be so proud of yourselves.
It is nuts.
Wow.
That's a Christmas miracle, pretty much.
Right?
Did you have a clock that was ticking down for every 7 days? I feel like you could do a movie just about that, man. Just 7 days that's great, man. You're bolder than I do not handle the donation sides of things at Kindness Rising. That's a big pressure point for me. It's a lot
scary.
of money. Yeah, you got a rejection and all the
so much
putting yourself out there. You're like, it's like, hey, here are my dreams. What do you think about them?
Right.
Click. All right. See you later.
And it's like it's a piece of you. You're like, please don't hurt this. It's actually my heart that I'm trying to give to you because I think it's a great idea.
So it was meant to be, so it worked out. Isn't that great? And so after you got the money, the people were they surprised? Did it feel like they were serious when they gave you a week?
Sure.
Yeah, like
they for sure walked into that meeting like, what?
You actually
like we're pretty sure I was in like basketball shorts and a t-shirt and I was like, yeah. I got it.
You need cash tonight?
Yeah,
no problem. As a briefcase guy, I would have it in a briefcase. So.
Totally.
Cash.
And I remember in that meeting feeling like they're just not taking us seriously, rightfully so.
Right.
Like I'm not mad at them about it, rightfully so. We looked like a bunch of kids and we were. Yeah. Like we very much were. And I remember at one point them being like, okay, yeah, we'll give it to you. But we'll give it to you over 3 months. So you can have 30% in June, 30% in July, 30% in August, but we'll profit share everything at 50-50 for the whole summer. And we're like, why would we do that? Like if we want to buy a business, wouldn't we just buy the business? And I remember looking at Sam in the meeting and Sam being like, we can give it to you today. And in my head, I'm like, no, we can't.
Right.
Like, we can't do that today. It may be tomorrow. But in that moment, I remember they just flipped of like, oh, they're serious. They must have it because they are approaching us like they have it. So, okay, here's what the deal will be. 30-day escrow. If you can show us the dollars in 3 business days, then it's yours. We won't even put it on the market. And that was then ultimate stress. But it was weird. Like, at no point were we like, this isn't going to work. Like at every point it felt like, I don't know how we're going to get this amount of dollars, considering in my personal bank account, I think I had like $4.
Yeah.
But I was like, I think we can do it. And same thing with Sam. At no point was she like, I don't think we got this. It was always like, yeah, we'll have it. It's fine. And then sign the paper. I remember signing the paper and being like, this can't be real. But we opened escrow. We didn't know what escrow was.
Yeah, what is actually, I don't know what escrow is either, to be honest.
It's just like a 30-day period where anyone can back out, basically, but there's a third party that's transferring all the legal documents between you two. So we opened, which to us, we were like, we did it. And to everyone else, they were like, almost.
You have to close escrow. Opening's one thing.
Yeah.
Closing escrows.
Yeah.
And so do you guys own it outright, like the whole building, or?
We don't own the building. We lease.
You lease, okay.
We
so
lease. We own the business.
God, okay. I'm not very knowledgeable on these sorts of things, so.
It's fine. Neither was I. Truly.
Yeah.
Do you like the location?
Some days, yes. I think, most days I'm able to look at it and say, I'm glad we're here. We're doing a good thing. We are impacting people. It's people that we identify with and identify with us. And then there are some days where I am like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Get me out of this town. It's just hard. There are some days that are so painfully hard where I'm like, I just don't know if it's worth it, because we're trying to be safety for everyone. But in turn, on some days, that feels like we are the ones bearing the brunt of what is unsafe, because we get the person that walks in and has an opinion and wants to say something about it. We get the notification on our phones when someone blasts us on Yelp for no reason at all other than we're inclusive. Like, there's so many things that on those days I'm like, we should have just done it in Long Beach.
Yeah, that'd be a little, but yeah, how do you get through that? There's time.
Good question. Yeah.
I think one, I now in my own life and in my own reflection have the ability to look at it and say, like, it was a well-intentioned thing in the way that we pitched it, of like, we're building this for people. But if I look back at 2 years ago me, I wanted it for me. I wanted to redeem all the things I had been through. I wanted a safe space. I wanted to exist somewhere every day, to not think about like what I was wearing, what I looked like, who was there. I just wanted a space. I wanted it. And so I think there are pieces of me that recognize like how much healing I've had there, of all the things that felt hurt and broken within me. And just little moments of things I never thought would happen that have happened there. I remember I was sitting outside at a table with my girlfriend, and these two little kids, their dad's a customer. They're 5 and 6. They come up to us and they're like, Mykah, who's this? And I'm like, this is Ayana. This is my girlfriend. And then 10 seconds later in my head, I'm like, oh, shit. Like, they're super young. I don't know what dad's perspective is. I don't know if this is too early to teach that. I just said it because I wasn't thinking. This is my place. And then they're like, okay. And then dad takes him in the car, whatever. He comes back the next day, and I'm expecting the worst. Like, I see him, and I'm like, I can go in the kitchen for a little bit. I can hide from him. Like, I know that I did something. I know he's going to want to talk about it. He came up to me, and he was like, I just want to say thank you. I was like, thank you. Why are you thanking me? He was like, I've been trying to think of ways to introduce to my kids about like LGBTQ people, and you just gave it to me. Like, you just put it on a platter, you gave it to me. He's like, I just want you to know they rode home the whole way from the store, and they were just chanting, Mykah has a girlfriend, Mykah has a girlfriend, over and over. He's like, it's the cutest thing. But awesome. You did that.
Wow.
And that stuff is like, I'll remember that. For all the times I wasn't accepted, I'll remember that forever. And I think that the part of it's for me is like, I experienced so much there that it's inherently beautiful, but then like, I also have the privilege, because I'm there every day, of seeing who it's impacting and how much it's impacting, of, LGBTQ people that live in Huntington that still live with their parents. Maybe their parents aren't affirming, but they come and get coffee every day and have a place to just chill for hours. Or, you know, people in my own life, friends and family that come in and just get to exist. I think those people, those stories, I had a really rough night, I'm going to come in for a coffee text messages are like, that's why we're here. It doesn't matter how many times I have to block the same guy on Yelp. Like,
that's crazy. We'll save a half an hour at the end for that guy. But,
yeah, that to me that's what gets, I think, if I'm speaking for Sam too, that's what gets both of us through.
So there's way more good than the obnoxious days.
Yeah, the obnoxious days are frequent. There's a lot of them, but I think the power behind the good moments feels so much stronger. Maybe we have 10 people in a row that just don't get it, but then the 11th cries and you're like, oh, you get it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You get it. And that to me is way more powerful than the 10 people that looked at me and were like, what?
You have a double challenge because we all know that restaurant, retail, food, coffee shops are hard to do good anyway. Mm-hmm. And so you're trying to do that just to stay in business and be this refuge, this oasis, this safe place. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like, I think before we started recording, I was asking how the business side of it was this far in, because I didn't want to start interviewing you and then have you start crying on us and like, Keith, we're just filed PK or something. Yeah. But you said things are looking up, that 2020, 21, all the COVID stuff, shenanigans were difficult, but it's moving in the right direction.
Totally. Yeah. I think, coffee, like many other things in the world, was hit very hard in the supply chain category. So they were out of stuff. Stuff we needed maybe it was there, but it was 4 times more expensive. And I think we endured way more hardship in the first year than I ever thought we would have, just financially alone. I think, a lot of people looked at us and they're like, starting a business is so hard. Mm-hmm. So many of them fail. But we went into it just happy, blind. Like, we got this. Like, no matter what, we got this. We never thought it would fail, never anything. And then, you have bills and they're expensive and you keep going and keep going. And there were times where I was like, oh, this is what people were talking about. This is really hard.
Right.
I get it. And I get how it's hard when it's your own livelihood of like, you are reliant on the thing and the thing is reliant on you. It's difficult. And I think there were days in that where, you just sit there and you're like, I hope we get 100 people that walk through the door today. And then maybe you do. And it's like, today's a great day. And then there's some days when you're like, I really need to take 80 orders today. And you hit 60. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard not to be bummed out by that. But again, I think the thing that's worth holding on to there is like, what we gain socially is way more important than what we're gaining fiscally. And so as long as we had enough to just keep the thing going, we knew that like people would get it and people would see the impact and we would continue to be impacted in all of the things. And I think, everyone that owns a business right now has a very similar story of what the past 2 years have looked like. There were days where it felt so much hope, and then there were days where it just felt really hard. And I think, I'm grateful that that's what our first year looked like, because I think you survive that, you've got a big ceiling. Like, you can only really go up, and I think that's what's thrilling about it. Kind of being out of that, being in a little bit more stable situation, just coming off of a good season, and feel like we made the right moves, feel like we chose each other in the right ways, chose the vision in the right ways, and now we're seeing the fruit of that. And that to me is like, this was so worth it. Like, to just sit on stable ground for a second and be able to look at, my brother's a business owner, be able to look at my brother and be like, dude, you were right. Like, I remember when I told him what I was doing, he was like, you're nuts. You are literally nuts. Like, you're in a pandemic. You don't start a coffee shop. And I was like, no, it's totally fine. But now I can look at it and be like, you were 120% correct, but I am still so glad I didn't listen to you, because we're here. And now that we like know how to make coffee, know that it tastes good, know like Sam does all the roasting and it's incredible. Like now that we're there, we've got everything, you know, feel like the business owners that we are now. It gets more fun of like, what do we get to do vision wise? What do we get to create? Events, people, gatherings. What do we get to do now that's like, this is what we've been waiting for. This kind of takeoff point. Feels like we're at, like we just hit the finish line for one season. Now we're at the starting line of the next. Like, just keep running and we'll see what we can build. And I think now to me, I'm so excited. I'm like, what we can do next feels where all the like promises are of like what we can do.
That's like the original ideas. A lot of those are the things that are going to be coming in the next. You're the starting phase. It's in the baby's in school now, right? It's like now time to. That's so exciting, man. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
When was the moment where you realized you're like, okay, this is going to last? Was there a moment like a day?
Like,
I mean,
we're going to survive, right?
You know, because it's like like where you finally felt like it felt more likely that things weren't going to fall apart, because you know the first year was very stressful or whatever. Was there like a distinct moment where you got to where you're at now, where you're like, okay, it would be more likely that we would succeed than fail, I guess?
Yeah, a couple months ago we had a meeting with a guy that he's one of my good friends, love and adore him. He owns a business in Orange County, and it's a $50 million business, so his demographic is way different than ours, but he's such a good, like, he's a part of every business group ever, it feels like. So when I felt any emotion, he was the call of like, hey, what do I do? But Sam and I both met with him a couple weeks ago, sat down with him and just said like, here's some of the things we experienced in the last year, both like just from a pure business standpoint and then also socially. What do you think? And he was like, this is normal. Everything that you're describing is normal. Everyone feels this way. Everyone goes through these things, especially when you identify as a part of a minority group. All the uphill battles you're fighting, they're all normal. Sadly, they are. And these are all the things that like you will continue to overcome. And I think I didn't even realize it, but I told Sam on the way home, like, I'd just been craving like some sort of validation of like, is what we are going through real? And sitting with him and having the assurance of like another business owner saying, I have had very similar days. Here's what success looked like. Here's what holding on looked like. That meeting to me was super influential in moving forward, because I was like, oh, we can do it. But I just thought we were the only ones out here struggling. Like, I just thought maybe it was only hard for us, you know. Because you guys might fail, and this is a sign of it. Yeah, that's knowing the struggle is actually part of the winning. It's like, this is all part of the success, actually. Yeah, it's such a backwards thought. But then you get there, and it all makes more sense. And I remember leaving that meeting and being like, oh, we're doing it. We've been doing it. Like, we've been doing it the whole time. We're not failing at anything. We're just... like, it's just hard. It's just hard. It's hard. It's a hard thing. It's a natural thing. Like, I now, because like it's coffee and it's an international business, like Sam and I pay attention to foreign markets, and that's not something that I ever would have thought. Wow. But like, it's just things like that where it's like, this is hard work, but that doesn't mean that it's not rewarding. It doesn't mean that we're failing. It doesn't mean that like we're underachieving in some way, like we should be doing more. That stuff always creeps in of like, maybe if we just did this, right, you know, tomorrow would be easier. None of that's true. Like, you just have to stay aligned to the why and who you are, what you're trying to create, and the faith or whatever you want to call it, that like, it'll keep coming, it'll keep happening. And I think once I kind of let go of the control, like, is this gonna work, is this gonna work, is this gonna work, then now I feel so much more free of like, it's working. It's been working the whole time. So many businesses fail under the year threshold, and we made it past that mark and then some, and that's confidence in and of itself of like, we're fine. We're doing the thing. We're legit. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. If things continue to go according to your hopes, dreams, visions, and Luv Collective. A year or two from now, you could describe what are some other things other than selling an amazing cup of coffee. What are some other things that are kind of like this other expression of what you guys want to be in this safe place? Yeah, it's a place for people to come and sit and know that the team and the staff all love them and support them and get them. And are there programs, events, other things that you see happening through you or with you guys?
Yeah, I think, a big piece for us is in acknowledging our own beginning and where we came from, of essentially the people who sold us the business, like, they gave us a shot. And they said, you know what, kids, good luck. We'll give you a shot. So I think now, looking at other creators, looking at other people that are LGBTQ identifying, are women, are people of color that are starting their own businesses in their homes and just being creative and using it as outlets, giving them a platform to succeed as well. Like, my biggest hope for our space is that not only do we see our business thrive out of it, but also maybe it's a catalyst for 15 other businesses, that small vendors get to come in and sell their things and get enough confidence that, like, they can do this for a living. And things like that, where we had a market last weekend for LGBTQ creatives, essentially. We had ceramics, we had art, we had photography, all the things, and just people sold their stuff. And it was super successful. And I remember leaving that event and being like, now it's not just about us. And we sold a lot of coffee. A lot of people came and saw us. Our friends were there. Our families were there. It was beautiful. But it's also about the 9 other people that got a shot to get their product out there. And now, like, there's more of us. Now, maybe we're not the only LGBTQ identifying business in Huntington Beach, but at least for the day, there were 9 more.
That's amazing.
And that, to me, is, like, super powerful.
Are you the only LGBT, like, openly LGBT coffee shop in Huntington, or business?
Coffee shop, absolutely. Business, if I had to guess, I would say maybe, probably, but I'm not sure.
Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't gay people that own businesses in Huntington. It's just not like a rainbow flag on the thing. Like, this is, because yours is a specific, it's like like a gay bar is like specifically gay. You're like a gay coffee shop.
Yeah.
Or LGBTQ.
Yeah.
I'm still from the 2000s.
Totally.
We were where everybody, it was a lot less subtle back then, I would say.
Right.
So yeah.
Our logo is literally a rainbow. Right. And so many people come in all the time and they're like, the rainbow's so cute. I'm like, you missed it.
Right.
Like, you missed the whole thing.
I put my hand over my head for the viewers that can't see me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you are you kind of the queen of the community now? Like, are you guys since you're the one coffee shop, are you not in a, you do, like, do kids come, like, are you famous in a little bit of a way as like a maven of this stuff? I
wouldn't say famous. I definitely feel like we've done a really good job creating community with the customers we were given. So we bought an existing coffee shop and then we turned it into ours. Okay, so people had, they come every day. Eventually they'll realize it's changing, but you don't realize it's changing until it's like, oh gosh, everything's changed. But I think something that I'm super proud of and feel like we did really well is the customers we inherited from Surf Cafe that are now customers of Luv Collective. We took them through that journey with us, and not only did we bring them along and say, like, here's what this is, here's what this will be, but we also very vulnerably said, here's who we are. And I've had conversations about my life, I've had conversations about all the things, what's good, what's bad, what hurts, what doesn't, with customers. And I think that semblance of community for me is that it's someone coming in the door, it's a customer coming through the door, someone I probably shouldn't relate to in any capacity. Maybe it's a over 50 man and I'm just, hello, but I have this one customer that every day comes in, how are you? But now he knows. He can look at my face, he knows when I'm good, he knows when I'm tired, he knows when I'm sad. And depending on which one he picks up on is how he'll approach me. And that to me is like, he'll walk in and be like, "Oh, you didn't sleep last night. Are you okay?" And normally I'd be like, "Hey, that's not nice." Yeah. But with him, I'm like, that's actually really endearing. And I feel like for, the couple hundred people that we have carried along with us in that community way, it's not that we're famous as much as like we've created a family, and they have the privilege of coming to the store and seeing what Luv Collective is, but they also have the privilege of, if my sister comes into town, they're going to meet her and she'll talk to them and they'll get to know each other. We're not like behind the scenes owners of a business. We're the ones behind the bar. Like, we're there every day.
Yeah, it's more like you're like you said, a family, or I imagine like a European, like a French lady that like she's the only one working at the place, and it's very family. Like you feel like you're in someone's home maybe, or their cool collective. Yeah. Like home.
Do you watch Ted Lasso?
I don't, but I don't watch a ton of stuff, Sally.
It's good. May behind the bar?
Yes.
That's how I feel. Like, everyone knows May.
Yeah.
Like, you just walk in and you're like, "Hey, May." And that's like, "Hey, Sam." That's like our business.
It's like Cheers.
Okay,
from another.
Nice.
I've seen the first episode of Cheers. It's a very good pilot. If you want to learn how to write a TV pilot,
where everybody knows your name.
Yeah, that's at least the vibe that I'm going for. I think it's cool that like we're an LGBTQ owned business in Huntington. I think like there's parts of that are painful, and then there's parts of it that's like we're doing a really cool thing. But the part of it I'm more proud of is how we're able to know people and get to know people. And we've turned like the "Hey, how are you? Good, how are you? What can I get for you?" coffee into like, "Hey, how are you?" And to someone having the courage to say, "Not good." And then that kind of goes from there, which I think was probably your whole idea in the very beginning when we were like, we want a nonprofit, and you were like, just make it a business, but don't make it transactional. I feel like that is what we're witnessing now of it is a business, but we're trying to take away the transaction and the capitalistic mindset of like, just get in and get out. It's no, how are you actually doing though? Yeah. And that to me is obviously the business stuff still matters. We have to survive, like we're saying, but it's more about the other, which is what makes it unique. And
we know people in our culture, especially, desire a good cup of coffee, and they're willing to pay for a good cup of coffee. For sure. So give them a fucking good cup of coffee and love them on top of that. Totally. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Even through COVID, even through, inflation, the economy, all the things, people still drink coffee. People are not going to not drink coffee. I drink coffee. Like it's just part of life now for so many people that, even in the probably one of the more difficult times to own a business in the pandemic, there were still people, a lot of our customers are cyclists. Like cyclists never stopped riding bikes and they still wanted coffee. So we got to stay open. And that kind of stuff is like, that's really cool. Huntington is such a funky place because, it runs from Pacific Ocean all the way up to the freaking 405 freeway, and it can feel so strange. You can get lost in Huntington because the streets run so weird, but you are not in that part. Like, you're in the coolest, badass, fun, funky part of Huntington that nobody should get lost trying to find you, and we haven't yet said exactly where you're located. Yeah. So tell everybody where you are. So we're on PCH, which is good for maps, all the things. If you're not good at directions, you know where PCH is. Ocean's on your left, drive north. Right. Last stop in Huntington. I say you're the freaking last stop. For people that are local, know it as Sunset. Yeah. Sunset Beach. You're like the last thing before you get to freaking Seal Beach. Pretty much, right? Yeah. There's the Seal Beach Bridge, and right before the Seal Beach Bridge on the Huntington side is a Simple Green, the cleaning supplies office building, and we are right next door. There's a huge sign that says "Best Coffee Ever," which I do not enjoy at all. No pressure. But it actually works. So we leave it up, and we're right there. Yeah, just so the folks at home know, we didn't get a chance to go visit your store before because I'm a big cafe writer and stuff. So I've driven by it a million times going to Long Beach, but maybe I'll go tomorrow before work. And what time do you guys? What are your hours? We are open 7 to 2 during the week, and then 7 to 4 on the weekend. Okay, so nice, early. Yeah. That'd definitely be to work on time. I don't get to linger. Yeah, before traffic, all the things. And I have been because of our history, and I love going. And it's not only coffee, but now it's what do you call it? Danish bakery stuff, all that.
Yeah,
all the delicious stuff.
Burritos, sandwiches, bagels, all the things. You're hungry, you're thirsty, whatever. We've got it.
Is it a 2-story building?
It is, but the second story is not ours.
Got it. Okay. So
it's another business, but maybe one day. We'll see.
You never know, right?
Yeah, never know.
I'm sure there are other questions that I wanted to ask you. Mm-hmm. I know this, that we never know who's listening already or going to listen, who's going to pass this on. But I know that there are people, young people that are struggling in their identification mm-hmm. or orientation, right? Mm-hmm. So I want you to offer some hope. Take a minute and speak to that person, that young person maybe, or older person who mm-hmm. is in the midst of questions, doubts, struggles mm-hmm. about who they are. And then maybe also that young person who is also thinking about wanting to do a business, but maybe has some fear inside. Mm-hmm. I think those would be two kind and courageous things to speak into the lives of listeners.
Yeah, I think for the LGBTQ identifying young, old, whoever you may be, I think if I had advice to offer the previous versions of myself that were not okay or that felt unseen or unheard or unloved, everything that you are, everything that you love, everything that you care about is innately beautiful. It's innately lovable. It's cared for. It's unique, and it is needed in this world of, so much monotony and then day-to-day things. Like, we need other, we need beautiful, we need unique, we need all sorts of communities and identifications. We need you. And I think for the pieces of it that feel hard, your fear is not invalid. There may, or there very will be hard things ahead of you. But in those hard things, my promise to you is that not only will you find the truest version of yourself that you get to love and hold and cherish deeply, but you will also get to share that version of you with all the people that will step into your life. And maybe they're not the ones that you've held before, but they're the ones that will continue with you after. And that love is so worth it. So worth it. It will change your life and save your life over and over and over again.
Love that. That's well said.
Do it.
Yeah.
Come out. We're here. If you need me, if you need anyone, my email is on the website for my business, www.luvcollective.org. You will see my email. LUV.
Collective.org. Okay.
LUVcollective.org. Please email. This is not a fake introduction. If you need anything at all, I will gladly answer. And I think for the business owner, I think the coolest thing that I've realized is the dreams that you have within you are not mistakes. They are not there for fun or just for no reason. I think if you have a dream, as cheesy as it sounds, you certainly can build it. And the world, your life, your people, your family will all be better for it. If it feels like it's impossible, you're probably on the right track. Just keep on going and have a vision, know who you are, know who you want to do it with, who you want to share it with, and then build it. And when you run into roadblocks, make sure that you have trusted people that will point you in the right direction, that won't steer you wrong, that will keep leading you to where you want to go. And know that, when the day comes where you turn the keys, open the door, open that thing, you will be so proud of yourself, and it will be so just fulfilling for not only you and your communities, but also the world, to know that you created, you ideated, you built a thing that we all need.
Wow.
Thanks. Yeah. That's good advice for anybody listening, including us.
Yeah. that's what I felt like. She's speaking right to us.
This guy's trying to...
what we're doing.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to move my posture without squeaking the chair too much for your viewers at home. One question I had that's kind of fun, maybe I don't know if it feels like we might be towards the end. Is there any like nerdy business thing that you love that you had no idea you would love?
That's a great question.
Oh my gosh, I love a spreadsheet.
I was going to say spreadsheets.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love a spreadsheet.
You are sick.
When the math...
Google Sheets, Excel, what are we talking?
I love Google Sheets, but that's because I like for all my things to live in one place.
Yeah.
And Google Drive gives me that option. But when you can get a good spreadsheet and you can populate it and formulate it right and all the math does itself and it serves you, you just type in the numbers, that is so nerdy, but so fulfilling. Like, I find such joy in those spreadsheets. And a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, probably wouldn't have been my takeaway, but I really love it.
Had you had any experience with those sheets, really?
College,
a little bit.
When you're like, you have a test on this, figure it out type of stuff. But
other than that, no.
No, now I love it. Now I'm like, oh, we have an idea? I'll turn it into a spreadsheet. Watch me work.
Do you use color coding and stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Google Sheets is really great for like different like shades of the same color.
Absolutely.
So it looks really good. Just to nerd out back with you.
Yeah, you guys are having a serious nerd moment. I love this.
Yeah, it's good. It's good life. Organized, secure, all the things.
Thanks, Google. We know you're listening anyway. So, please.
Any other nerd questions or any other questions?
Maybe as a writer, a guy that writes in cafes all the time, do you get a lot of writers?
Yeah, a lot of creative people, writers, photographers, video editors, sound editors. A lot of our customers put headphones on, and whatever it is, just crank it out.
Go for it.
I think you always know those people because they have the laptop, they have the headphones, and then they order, but then like an hour or 2 hours later, they come back and they order again. And they're like, hey, I acknowledge I'm still here. I'm going to go back in. Or maybe you get hungry. Like all those things of like, yes, there are many of you. And they frequent Luv Collective.
That's great. I'll be there maybe tomorrow. Yeah. I'm ready to check it out.
Me too.
Good. That's good. I'll be there 1 o'clock when I get up and see further down. Actually, another question, maybe if you're trying to do events, I host an open mic. Do you guys do like open mics or any stuff like that?
Haven't yet, but definitely want to.
Cool. Maybe we'll get that going. We do an open mic. Plug for our open mic on Friday night at a competing, I guess it's not a competing because you're a little different city, Moon Goat Coffee Roasters, which you were at earlier today.
I was,
waiting in line.
There it is. Right on the counter there.
Very nice.
Competing. No.
Right,
I think a cool thing about coffee is like it doesn't really feel that competitive by nature. If I'm a business owner, I know that it's probably unrealistic to say that you two are going to get your cup of coffee from the same location every single day. So I actually thrive off of the variety. I know that you'll go to Moon Goat, and then when you're in my area, you'll come over.
Absolutely.
And that to me is so nice. Of like, I don't have to look at the success of like Allie at Neat and be jealous of it. I look at what she does and the way the coffee tastes, the way the store is, the community, all the things. I'm like, that's sick. And that's what we're trying to make too. And now we can be allies in that together of I can want you to succeed as bad as you want me to succeed. And that doesn't take away from either of us. And I think that's, why coffee became the dream in general of, we can't get into a super competitive space because then we're not actually creating the like safety that we're trying to. We're trying to get into like a friendly, family-oriented community space. And so I think, all props to Moon Goat. I just bought a cappuccino.
There you go. Yeah. And each coffee shop is so different. There's a bunch in Costa Mesa, and they all have it. There's almost no competition because if you want the one vibe, you're not. It's not like there's two that are the same that you choose between. Right. It's like if you want to go to Moon Goat, it's crowded. You want to go to Neat, it's a little quieter. Daydream's another one. I'm just repping. I only go to Moon Goat, to be honest, or McDonald's, as you can't see at home. I thought of what's the worst coffee I can get before I interview a real coffee roaster. McDonald's. 7-Eleven might have been a little, maybe Circle K. That's the lowest. Folgers, maybe. What's the best coffee that you don't make, and what's the coffee that you wish people would go extinct?
Oh my gosh, Folgers is disgusting.
Yeah,
but that's because how long has it really been in the can?
Yeah,
no one knows.
Since the 60s, they just made it all in the 60s.
All at one time.
No one knows.
Yep.
It's left over from World War II.
Totally.
Yeah.
Best coffee, Vacancy Coffee in Newport Beach is phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's
down on
also
Coast
on
Highway.
PCH. Yeah. It's so delicious. I love it. I know nothing of who owns it or anything, but their cappuccino is to die for. And then super biased just because I love her and love what she does, but anything that Neat does, I will always be a fan of, because I think Allie is just the shit and has been beneficial and helpful to us in our journey, is another woman that I see just absolutely crushing it. And so that to me is like, she could give me the worst cup of coffee and I'd be like, Allie, this tastes fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
Like, I would just love it. Like, it's those two places I think are standouts for me. And then hopefully, I just realized they're both in Costa Mesa. Hopefully we'll get some more up north.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What has there been, I mean, is it mostly word of mouth for you guys? How do you promote?
No. Yeah. I think that PCH does most of the work. You're going to, like he's just
People
said,
just driving
people drive by.
I knew it as soon as Keith told me what it was called. I was like, oh, I've driven by that a million times.
Yeah. I think the hard part there is like, what can we do to get you to stop?
Right.
Because
yeah.
like you see us.
Yeah, that's
And then you don't.
Yeah. And then
Right.
you're going 60. Like
usually.
you have to hit it at the right time to get in the parking lot. But I think most is word of mouth, organic. We get a lot of, like, we're weekend heavy, so beach traffic.
Right.
If there's, a surf competition, if the waves are good, anything like that, we're busy.
Weather's good,
Yeah.
sunny out. Right.
Sunny, warm, we're busy.
Boom.
Rain, we're so slow. It's, it's just dependent on what's going on in the area, but we can usually bank on getting a few people just organically.
Huntingtonians. How do you call people who live in Huntington?
That feels good.
The stand-up comedian wanted to joke and say, oh, you called them Nazis. But we're going to cut that out, so don't worry, folks. Come see me perform jokes like these on Friday nights.
That's a good one.
Yep.
It's,
What was the other part? You did another Huntington joke. I think you ought to do it too.
Yeah. How does it go?
About the whitest part of Huntington?
That's another comedian that performs at my show, so I'm not going to steal his joke.
Okay.
But, I used to say this joke, which is like, I like Huntington. It's good. I like the beaches and stuff, but the people are kind of a little too bro-y. Personally, I like to live around more gays than people that call each other gay, but that's just me. So, as someone who used to live in West Hollywood, that's a little. I feel a little safer as an ally, even better.
Totally. Yeah, that, unfortunately, both of your jokes are
getting cut.
Too real.
Yeah, they're too.
A little too real.
That's the healing. It needs to happen. Laughter is the medicine we all need.
They hit home for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this was fun for you. Thanks for taking a chance on coming and joining us, because you didn't know exactly what you were getting into.
Love to wing it.
You are our 6th guest.
Nice.
6 is my favorite number. And I hope for those that are listening, they will come check you out at Luv Collective.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that are looking for a resource or support or something else, that they'll at least reach out to you online.
Yeah.
And if somebody is a creative and LGBTQ and they live in the Huntington area and they want to talk to you about that stuff, that's something too.
Mm-hmm. Send me an email. If you are a creative, if you're a comic, if anything, just send an email. Sam or myself will respond. And
cool.
Yeah, that's the goal next year.
Do we want to ask her? I was trying to think of any Kindness Rising question we could ask her to circle back to make it really about us.
Yeah. We
Gotta end on that.
Yeah. We sort of just asked this kind of blanket question. It's like, how does kindness help you do what you're doing, or how does that fit in? Do you think about kindness as like a virtue that you have or hold, or?
For sure. I think the interesting part about Huntington is that I mean, every single day there will be someone that not only does not identify with you, but actually antagonizes you. And so I think the question, even just after your joke that might get cut question mark, but might stay after,
it's probably,
is like, how do I be kind to someone that is a Nazi? Like, is that my obligation? Is that what's right? Is that, am I doing the wrong thing there by being kind? Where is that threshold? that's what's hard, right? Obviously, like, the goal is to be kind to everyone that walks through the door, but what do you do when that person antagonizes who you are? Is that, like, I feel like it's something that, unfortunately, we have to think about every day. And the goal so far has always been be kind until it's unsafe. Mm-hmm. And the second it's unsafe, there's permission to explore other avenues of maybe removing the person, whatever. That stuff doesn't need to be talked about. But the leading factor in the day-to-day operation of Luv Collective is just being kind and seeing what relationships come from that and how they're honestly mutually beneficial, and we'll get to know each other and all the things. But there's weight to it. It's hard. Sometimes it's really easy, and you meet people you love and they change your life and they're in your life forever. And then sometimes it's, how do I be kind to the person that has looked me in my face 4 times in a row and asked for the owner of the business, and I've repeatedly told them that I am them, and they keep saying, where's the man? Like, what do I do there? Wow. And that stuff is the harder part, but it's definitely like a leading value of, I don't want to leave those interactions and feel like I missed an opportunity there.
To have real interaction or see the human, connect, not just let it be what they want, which is like some sort of unconscious argument probably, or a dehumanizing thing. Yeah.
There's humanity and dignity in every person, irregardless of what perspective they're bringing in. So I think that's the value, is if I'm saying that I would like a safe space for me to have my humanity, how far can we go to give that to everyone until it's unsafe? And I think that's the constant line that we're trying to balance.
Kindness isn't always obvious or easy. There's some calculation sometimes, like, well, if you're kind to this guy and he's unkind to other people, there's a net kindness. It's kind of, but it's good that you're dealing with that and realizing that it's worth it, because if it wasn't worth it, you'd probably find some other avenue of dealing with it. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Mykah, thank you. Thanks for joining us. I can't wait to see what this next year holds, and you'll have to come back and visit us again and keep telling some more stories. And if you run across some people that are just doing really cool things, different things, and or topics that you think we ought to be continuing to hit here on Kindness Rising, let us know.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for listening, and we look forward to seeing you out and about wherever the road takes you. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
As always, the Kindness Rising podcast is brought to you by Kindness Rising. Kindness Rising is a community organization committed to inspiring, equipping, and resourcing people to lead lives that flourish, grounded in kindness, and aimed at making the world a better place. For more information, please visit our website at kindnessrising.community. There you can find out about our upcoming events, how to get involved. You can sign up for our newsletter, find out more information about this podcast, or even donate. Kindness Rising is supported solely by the generous contribution of our lovely donors. So if you would like to help support us, please go to kindnessrising.community/donate.